Coming back to 377A, my dearest of all friends, I must say that this has been the most traumatic journey of my life is 377A. Prema has seen me going through psychological disasters in taking up death penalty cases over the years. Executions and international campaigning out of my pocket. Can't even pay my rentals, and my friends and my law firm partners warn me, don't take up another death penalty and don't go crazy over international campaigns. This is not the duty of a lawyer, including doing funerals and all that. I've written 2 books called Hang and Don and Kampong Boy, another one on just a titillating novel on English language. But all these challenges, I was able to manage it well, despite the trauma. But because it was death penalty, everyone would identify it. Although the state still had its own monologue or ideology on death penalty, I was able to manage it. But I'll tell you, 377A was most traumatic. Now, the application was filed. Why was it filed? In the year 2010, Tan Eng Hong, a massage therapist. Tan Eng Hong is a great, great personality. I have huge respect for him. My mother took her life in the year 2000, which was a very traumatic year for me. In 2001, I was looking for a room to stay, and in a setup like East Coast, where it will have like an alternative, not lifestyle, but rather, it will have the mystical element. And here comes the advertisement of Tan Eng Hong on the paper, and all the rara and the universal energy that he brings in. So I went to his house, and it was just very clean, and this massage therapist and all that, especially gays are all very clean, that. They keep everything clean, including, you know what I mean? So after that, I got a room, I stayed there. Then I left after 3 weeks and I said, oh my God, I can't stay here anymore. But anyway, Tan Eng Hong was then charged in 2010, and he came to me and said, Ravi, I've been charged. Why? I said that, oral sex and blah, blah, blah in a public toilet. Then I went to court. Tan Eng Hong was kneeling down to the judge and I said, forgive me, Your Honor, I forgive myself and I forgive you, and so on and so forth. That was his expression. It's not a joke. Each one of us have our own expression. Why are we calling that person is mad and this person is mad? I'm so glad that I'm gifted with those so-called bipolar. It's not a disorder. It's actually a genius that has been given to me by God. Just like there's no schizophrenia in Hinduism and Buddhism, and bipolarity is a unique facility. I'm not gloating over the genius, but God has given you some gift. Let's be proud of that. It's all in my book. I won't spend so much of time. So Tan Eng Hong was charged. And then I asked one question, Tan, what is the... Then I saw in the papers, 2 other guys were charged for having oral sex in Muhammad Mustafa toilet, one Malay and one Chinese guy. Then I asked myself, what the hell the gay community has been doing? They don't care about all these people, is it? All this is about the pink dot, and all is about Chinese males having good bodies. The Indian and Malays have difficulty about the fact that you need Chinese men and good-looking men, and then that should be the kind of extol those kind of elitist values. And that is, what is discrimination? It is discrimination within discrimination. It is the marginalization of the transvestites and the Daskaro and the prostitutes and the minority Malays, and minority Malays meaning minority community in all over the world. In Malaysia, you're a minority Chinese. In India, and we will be them, and so on and so forth. This is about the issue. It's not about all elitist framework of having like Taiwanese soap opera kind of look, and then after that titillating attraction towards the gay community. And then Tan said, Ravi, let's challenge the 3778 since they have charged me for that. So I filed an application in High Court. Challenge was mounted. Biggest problem was the gay community, who don't want to be associated. Oh, Tan Eng Hong, gay sex, gay toilet sex, oh, we don't want to get involved. It is not some kind of a sexy person like in Hong Kong, like that guy who came, he's a good friend of mine as well, that Willie Leong who did this challenge, a 21-year-old boy, good looking, challenge. What the gay community wants is good looking people to challenge. Is that how law is challenged? Come on, when someone breaks the law, the person is already usually in a lack of access to justice, may not have the better resources of society. The way, when you're gifted with look already, you can go to the high end because you can go in prostitution and make money as a gigolo. That's the best option. So, Tan challenged. The state reduced the charge to defeat the challenge to 294. What is the difference between section 294 and 377A is very, very important. 377A, of course, you know what it is. Sex between, between 2 men. irrespective of whether it's consenting or otherwise. And so 294 is, for example, in a public toilet, a man and a woman, caught having sex in sex or the handicapped toilet, both of them go there and have sex. Have oral sex. They won't be charged at 377A, right? They will start in a 294. And 294 is the starting point is only a fine. Whereas 377A carries maximum of 2 years. It's very serious. It's jail sentence. The benchmark is jail. So if two men have oral sex in a public toilet, and if a heterosexual couple having sex, the sentence becomes different. So that is the starting point. So they reduced it to 294, so Tan Eng Hong can get a fine to defeat my constitutional challenge. But he went ahead. High Court, I lost. It is very important that I mentioned this. High Court, I lost at 2 levels in the High Court, registrar level. Then I took it to High Court. In High Court, there was an interesting opening by the Judge Justice Lai Kyu-chai, although she dismissed it. The judgment was quite bad as well. She said that, look, although Tan Eng Hong does not have a locus standa, let's not go into the complexity of locus standa because we don't have much time, unless later Prema gives me time. Time paper is important. Okay. Yeah, sure. Question time. We can pick up. Yeah, that's a good question. Then, so what happened was that she said, look, one of my grounds that challenge that was mounted in my document was that lesbians and gays, both of them have, same-sex orientation. Why is it that lesbian sex is not criminalized? So it's a very basic question that we ask. It's always important to go very simple and basic because law is very common sense. I'm writing the next book, Why Common Sense is Not So Common. And basic question, why don't criminalize? Why? I'm not saying that lesbianism should be criminalized, lesbianism, but why? You see that question. So she asked this question, it raises this question, this discriminatory element in this context. Then we went to Court of Appeal. Court of Appeal is where we got the Tan Eng Hong's most celebrated judgment. In fact, Tan Eng Hong's Court of Appeal judgment has been celebrated all over the world and it has been very, very well received across the Commonwealth. The way the judgment was written by Justice Raja and Rupang, of course, Justice Raja, I could see that he wrote the judgment, delivered it. And of course, Judith Prakash. They asked very, very interesting questions to the Attorney General. The most important question being is that why is it that Tan Eng Hong has a locus standi? That means locus standi means standing to, because we withdrew the charge against him. He's no longer, reduced the charge. He's no longer facing 377A charge. Then why? So the court said that look, our argument is that he's facing a credit. The state says, we won't proactively enforce. We are given that undertaking already. So therefore, the Attorney General says, so therefore you should not be afraid that we should enforce against. But the argument is there's a credible threat of prosecution. Why should we have this threat of sword of Damocles hanging over our shoulders? You know what I mean? The threat, the fear. So therefore, that if there is a real and credible threat that you will be prosecuted, you have a locus standi to challenge, hence the challenge was made. Then, the court also said, very significantly, that there is, that the gay community has been discriminated in a real and that there is a potential that the gay community or the gays are affected by this law in a real and intimate way. So, and also they identified the fact that there are so many aspects that were covered in the judgment, which I won't go in detail now. And then, of course, then the High Court, then the case went back to the High Court for a proper challenge. Now, the time that I launched the challenge, why I said it was a very traumatic experience. Taking up a toilet sex issue, the gay community did not want to identify. PLU issued a statement, we have nothing to do with this challenge. Alexa was very, very critical about the challenges. He wrote, that coin call versus, rebel as if I was a rebel rouser. When I challenged 377A, my biggest obstacle was Mr. Chu Chengzi, who happened to be my intern. He didn't want to speak to me for 3 weeks. He said, look, and Alexa came to me personally, don't take up this challenge. I never had any support. I was already fighting Yong Wei Kong and all these other battles already, mounting of I had so much of lack of resources. Can't you see that the whole nation's human rights portfolio I've taken on pro bono? the least that the gay community gave me is a hug, which Roy gave me. He's here, Dr. Roy. He was very significant support that he gave me. All were opposing me. And when the 377A locus standi issue came as a success, everyone wants to identify, guys, this is what I mean by ingratitude. When our parents and friends and all these people, it is true, Prema, don't have to, allow me to speak the truth. Otherwise, I can also organize my own forums and speak. Because there's YouTube, I can go home and talk about the whole thing on YouTube and upload, nothing can stop. Correct or not, we are far away from France, but don't worry. Nothing like that. In an era like that, you have to be open. Anyway, it's important we speak the truth, and it's important that we respect each other. It's important that we have compassion, but that does not mean that you can get away with murder. So, when Tan Eng Hong's all the stages, have you imagined how much of resources I couldn't pay rentals for so many months? Tan Eng Hong was facing bankruptcy if he loses, and Court of Appeal, High Court, another level of High Court, Court of Appeal. You know how much it costs if Mr. Peter Lu can collect 150,000 or whatever amount that the gay community has raised for one level of application? I should be paid about $1 million of worth of work I've done, but I didn't ask a single cent. Clap. That was I must be sure. You see, Singaporeans, you know what to do. We have to orchestrate everything like the government. This symphony, so clap, stand up, ovation, also stand up, sit down. That's how our government trained us. It's a joke, just enjoy the joke. Anyway, coming back to the 377A challenge itself, there are 3 grounds of challenge that we made. First of all, the law is, of course I still respect Kenneth and Gary for standing up as well. They added a lot of strength. I mean, honestly, I respect them as individuals, but if the challenge would have succeeded if the gay community had not got all the attention that it shouldn't have got, and agitate the Christian community with his own campaign. They should have left Tan Eng Hong when there was challenge was gone, nobody was speaking about it. And in fact, I had a lot of opposition. In fact, the anti-death penalty activists, not the activists, but the Yahoo, my so-called fan club, all alienated me because they said, oh, Ravi is a gay, he's fighting for this thing, some oral sex, and some another couple come. They said that, no, disgusting. Every time I open Yahoo, I become depressed, I go and see Dr. Winslow. And then take medicine and sleep, because that is stressing it was. And yet I took upon all these things upon myself. My family said, my God, why are you taking this application? I thought death penalty, all these rights are okay, but you don't fight this. So please, we need to, and in fact, if we had not agitated the Christian community, and if the gay community has not gone on the fundraising platform and all that, we would have also have a better sophisticated judge as well, which was there already, especially Justice V.K. Raj. I'm not saying the judiciary is not independent. I would say that the judgment would have been more sophisticated. That is where the try line has to be drawn, And then come back to the challenge. 3 levels. 1, 377A is vague, and so it can't. A law that is vague can't be law. Why is it vague? First of all, what does 377A basically cover? It covers what? Holding hands. Is that gross decency? Kissing? Because it does not define what is gross indecency, you see. Intimacy between 2 males. That's all. Holding hands, kissing. Okay? As basic as that. And it is also vague. And besides the vagueness, it is irrational. It's an absurd law. Why? Law, it is not only it is absurd. It is also cruel, because what it basically the state is saying, no, it's okay, we are homosexuals, we are not, they are saying that, they have come up to say that we are not criminalizing homosexuality. We are only criminalizing homosexual acts. That means you can be a homosexual, but don't express your homosexuality. But it's okay if you want to express. What you should do is, you become a woman. That means you become a transvestite or transsexual or transvestite or transsexual, You cannot. So it criminalizes the core part of your identity, which is why it is so that it is discriminatory. It is also arbitrary to that extent. Now, why is it is irrational, and also it is absurd? Because in criminal law, you need to have harm principle. Now, in criminal law, like for example, theft, housebreaking, blah blah blah, assault, there is a harm, isn't it? But where is the harm when two consenting male adults are having sex? So the AG says, oh, 3778, the sex is equivalent to necrophilia. Know what's necrophilia? Anyone? Anyone? Faster lah.
Sex with a dead body.
Sex with a dead body. Bestiality.
Sex with an animal.
All these things. They compare this with homosexuality. And sex with a dead body, does the dead body get harmed? Maybe yes, I'm not sure, because dead body got also sanctity, because never consent. The spirit will attack you on Hungry Ghost Festival. and bestiality, of course, animals cannot blah 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 and all that. There's no sense. They combine this with harm principle. So there's no harm, right? So therefore, how can, in criminal law, you can only criminalize something when there is harm? Now, coming back to the issue of public morality. At the end of the day, guys, the 3778 debate in Parliament, it's about signpost. It's about symbolic. It's about symbolic message. It's about the message. What is Parliament sending? Parliament said, we will not, basically we will not proactively enforce, but we want to send a signal that our society will disapprove of homosexuality. Why they disapprove? Because society is disgusted by gays. Now, when you then take a survey, like the Attorney General cited a survey by the NTU survey, and in that survey it talks about homosexuality. Do you agree homosexuality is fine and blah 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 blah? They never made a distinction between bisexuals and homosexuals, just generally. And most of them, and when you look, half of them took a very neutral stand, and 25 of them disapproved, and 25 of them agreed, and so on and so forth. But the flaw is, the flaw of this whole survey is this, that the Attorney General, if you look at the whole conclusion, most of them actually approve of homosexuality. Because the neutral is 45 already. The yes is 25. It's only the minority who are opposing. But even then, there's another problem in this whole dynamics of public disapproval. Now, they lumped both lesbians and gays together in that survey. So the impressions that the surveyors might have is that actually they're talking about gays and not lesbians. It is not, surveys you need to explain, just like the death penalty. Simply you go and ask people, do you approve of death penalty, without explaining the mandatory death sentence element. They might disagree or agree or otherwise, because you need to explain to them before you have, so that would be the sophisticated survey. So the problem is that lesbianism, basically what our society in essence is disapproving is that we are not as disgusted with lesbians in as much we are disgusted with gays. We can tolerate lesbian sex, it's fine, but we cannot tolerate gay sex. That is the disgust. Is that rational? That's totally irrational. Now, what is important about the constitutional terminologies here, which you need to grasp, and I think that that's important, that this, is Joao Prema's discussion, is that there is a concept of constitutional morality that you must grasp. In constitutional law, right, they talk about public morality, that majority feels certain way, therefore, that is the role of Parliament, and Parliament majority will that's basically parliamentary supremacy, the majority, right, votes and so on and so forth. But constitutional morality means it's actually the minority. That means this is a concept that was recognized, that was originated from South Africa. In South Africa, in the South African courts, when the courts dealt with this issue, this issue of sexuality, and also it was endorsed in India in the Ness Foundation case, when the courts initially struck down 377A, that look, if at all the constitution makes any sense, okay, fine, in as much, if at all the constitution has any power, has any meaning, it is about protecting minority rights. That is the reason why you need to go to court. Why do you need to go to court to enforce the law, is it? It's to challenge the law. It's to challenge when there is majoritarian oppression. It is to challenge when there is absurdity. It's to challenge when majority is saying, look, your sexuality is your acts, like you gays, you're disgusting. We can't understand how you guys, you're talking about anal sex or disgusting, So this is where the constitutional morality comes in, that the minorities' rights should be asserted. And that is where the role of the courts come. that the courts have a duty to constitutionally adjudicate but not abdicate that duty. I repeat, the courts have a duty to adjudicate on these matters and it should not be left to Parliament, and you must not abdicate, ABD, abdicate that duty, which sadly the Singapore courts have abdicated that duty. In 1969, the case of Ramyowa, all over the world, this case was a highlight case. In 1969, they said that the courts should retreat from this position of parliamentary supremacy. The courts must adjudicate. Our courts have gone back beyond 1969 very sadly. Now finally, the issue of sexuality. Why? The reason why in Article 12.2, which is equality provision, right? Which is equality. Why is it that the case, we had the CEDAW committee, and in that report they said that the gender discrimination should be included in Article 9 within the Article 9 and the Article 12. Article 12 is equality provision in the Constitution. That Article 12 should prohibit any discrimination against any form of gender discrimination. It should prohibit gender discrimination, which should include homosexuality and blah 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 and all that. The government gave an undertaking that should be read into the Constitution. But you know what is so sad? The AG was so bold enough to say that, look, women also can be discriminated under the Constitution because sex is not included in our Constitution. That means no one shall be discriminated on grounds of religion, blah 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 blah, religion, birth, descent and all that, but sex was excluded. So if sex is included, if Article 12 is read in such a way that there's discrimination against sex is included, then we will have 377A abolished, repealed by the courts. But they are not prepared to even recognize gender equality. And that is very sad. I don't know why everyone is keeping quiet, but that's another politics for another day.